I never thought I'd be the guy writing about this kind of mess, but here I am. My name's Mike, and I've been with my wife, Jessica, for about 6 years now. We met in college, hit it off pretty quickly, and things seemed solid for a while. She's that typical high-maintenance type, pretty bitchy when she doesn't get her way, but charming enough to keep you hooked. I always thought we had a good thing going, maybe a little rocky sometimes, but I never suspected it'd blow up like this. We were in the middle of planning my brother's wedding, huge deal for our family. Things were hectic, but Jessica was mostly on her game. The wedding was supposed to be perfect, and I was doing my part, giving my best man speech, trying to keep everyone laughing, smiling, celebrating. It was in the middle of my speech that I first caught something strange. I saw her, Jessica, whispering with the venue's sign language interpreter, a guy named Ethan, who was supposed to be translating the vows and speeches for the deaf guests. At first, I didn't think much of it. It's part of the job, right? But then I realized they were just exchanging polite gestures. No, it was more like they were communicating in a way that was way too close. Their hands moved fast, their eyes locked. It wasn't just professional, it was intimate. I saw her glance at him like he was the only person in the room, like she was hanging onto every sign he made. Meanwhile, I was up there trying to hold it together, trying to focus, but I couldn't shake this weird, cold feeling creeping up my spine. When the speech was over, I kept an eye on her. She suddenly looked nervous, more than usual, and I noticed her sneaking out of the reception hall, heading toward the coat room. I didn't follow immediately, but something told me I should. I excused myself, told my brother I needed a quick breath of fresh air, and I headed for the coat room myself. When I got there, I saw them. Jessica and Ethan, standing really close, whispering, her hand on his arm. They jumped apart the moment I stepped in. Jessica's face froze, like she'd been caught doing something she knew was wrong. That's when I realized this wasn't just an innocent friendship or some work-related thing. It was way more. She'd been cheating on me with him. I saw enough to know that this was no one-time thing. It was serious. She lied her ass off when I confronted her later, saying she was just helping him with a project, that she never even looked at him that way. But her eyes told a different story. They always do when someone's lying. I felt a mix of shock, anger, and heartbreak all at once. My mind was racing, trying to process what I'd just seen. I couldn't believe I had been blind, that I missed all the signs. Jessica, my wife, the woman I trusted, was out there sneaking around with a guy who was supposed to be just her colleague, or so she claimed. That moment in the coat room broke something inside me. Suddenly, everything about our relationship felt like a lie. But I didn't say anything right then. I just silently watched her storm out, my stomach twisting in knots. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her hands, her lips, her betrayed face. I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs, how she managed to hide this from me. For so long, was I blind? Was I just too comfortable, too trusting? Or was she really that good at lying? Whatever it was, I knew one thing: my marriage was shattered, and I had to decide what to do next. The next morning, I woke up with a pounding headache and a stomach full of knots. It was like my brain was trying to process the fact that my wife, the woman I loved and trusted, had been secretly screwing around with a guy at my brother's wedding. I replayed everything over and over. The signs I missed, her lies, that look in her eyes when I caught her. I felt this burning rage, but also a deep sense of betrayal that cut way deeper than any physical pain. I decided I couldn't just pretend it was a one-time mistake or some misunderstanding. It was too obvious. Jessica had been lying to me for months, maybe longer. Her attitude had been bitchy lately, snapping at me over small things, avoiding intimacy. I'd just written it off as stress or her period, but now I saw those were just cover-ups. She was hiding something, and I knew it wasn't going away on its own. I waited until she got back from work, trying to keep my cool. When she finally came home, I blocked her in the doorway. Her hair was done up nicely, her signature bitchy smirk on her face. I looked at her and said, "How long, Jessica? How long have you been cheating on me?" Her eyes widened just a little, then she threw out that classic line: "What are you talking about? You're crazy. I don't know what you saw, but I swear I love you. Ethan's just a coworker, that's all." I didn't buy it. I told her I saw her whispering with Ethan at the wedding, that I saw her touch him, and that her face told me everything I needed to know. She started lying worse, claiming I was imagining things, that I was paranoid, that I was overreacting because I was drunk or stressed out. She looked angry, defensive, like I was the one invading her privacy, but I knew better. I had seen what I saw. She was caught and she knew it. The thing is, I felt a strange mixture of heartbreak and rage. I never thought I'd be one of those guys whose wife cheated, but here I was. Betrayal isn't just about the sex, it's about the trust, the intimacy, the fact that she lied to my face. It's like she purposely built this fake world where I was supposed to believe everything was fine while she was sneaking around behind my back. I wanted to punch her, scream at her, but I just stood there, calm on the outside but boiling inside. After that, I started doing some digging. I went through her phone, her emails, her social media. I found texts from Ethan, plenty of suggestive messages, times they'd planned to meet up, and even some photos of her in lingerie. She'd been doing this for months, probably right under my nose. Part of me felt sick, part of me wanted to expose her, and part of me just wanted to get out before I lost my mind. But I knew I had to play it smart if I was going to do something about it. I couldn't just confront her again and expect her to come clean. No, I needed a plan. I needed to know exactly how deep this thing went, how many lies she'd told, how long she'd been planning to betray me. I felt like I was losing control, but I also knew that I wasn't going to be the naive fool she thought I was anymore. That betrayal, her betrayal, had lit a fire in me I didn't even know I had. I was done being the nice guy, done being the one who always forgives. This was different, this was real, and I was coming for answers. Over the next few days, I kept my cool on the surface, but inside, I was like a ticking time bomb. Every time I saw Jessica, I could see the guilt behind her eyes, but she was still trying to spin her lies. She insisted she never cheated, that Ethan was just a freaking coworker, and that I was overreacting. Yeah, because nothing screams innocent like that kind of over-the-top denial, right? I didn't buy a word of it, but I played along, pretending to be the understanding husband trying to keep the peace. Honestly, I was just biding my time, gathering every bit of evidence I could find. Then I remembered something from the night of the wedding that I hadn't really paid attention to at the time. During the reception, I'd noticed Jessica behaving strangely, more than usual. She kept looking at her phone, texting someone, and when I tried to talk to her, she'd brush me off with a bitchy comment. But I never thought she'd be sneaking around like that. Now I knew she was probably sexting Ethan or planning their meetups. That's when I decided I couldn't wait any longer. I needed to see her in action, to catch her red-handed if possible. So I set a trap. I knew she'd probably meet Ethan again. She had that look in her eye, that guilty energy. I started following her, not too obvious, just enough to see where she was going. Sure enough, 2 nights later she slipped out late. Around 10 p.m. I followed her discreetly to a part of town I didn't know well. She went to a small coffee shop, a cheap place, not fancy, and I saw her go inside. I watched her through a window from across the street, heart pounding. And then I saw Ethan walk in. They sat close, whispering, leaning in toward each other. That was the confirmation I needed. I didn't stick around. I drove home, my mind racing again. I knew I had to confront her with everything I'd uncovered. I couldn't keep pretending I didn't see what was happening. When I got home, I waited until she was in bed, then I went through her phone again, copying every message, every suggestive photo. I wanted to be prepared for whatever she threw at me. I felt sick but also strangely relieved. I finally had proof that I wasn't losing my mind. The next morning, I woke her up early, my stomach twisting. I told her I knew everything about Ethan, the sneaking out, the sex, the lies. I showed her the evidence. Her face went blank for a second, then she started screaming, calling me paranoid, crazy, insecure. She said I was just jealous, that Ethan was harmless, and that I was overreacting because I was insecure about losing her. It was so predictable. The lies, the denial, they'd been rehearsed 100 times in her mind, I bet. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I felt like the fool who finally saw the truth after being blind for so long. Her reaction just pissed me off even more. She sat there, yelling, crying, trying to convince me she loved me, that it was just sex, that it didn't mean anything. Yeah, right, sex with Ethan meant nothing. That's a lie I'd never buy because it was never about sex. It was about betrayal. It was about her choosing someone else over me, over our life together. That's what hurt the most, the sheer disregard she had for my feelings, for the vows we made. I told her I'd had enough, that I wasn't going to be a cuckold, that I was done with her games. I didn't say what I was planning next, but I knew I had to do something drastic. I couldn't stay in this marriage knowing she'd been lying and cheating behind my back. I felt like I'd lost a part of myself. That trust had been shattered beyond repair. I just wanted her to leave me alone for a while, to think about what she'd done. I knew I wasn't going to forgive her easily, if at all. But I also knew I had to decide what my next step was, what kind of life I wanted after this betrayal. After that confrontation, I felt like I was walking around in a fog. The truth hit me hard, and everything about my life suddenly felt different, less stable, more fragile. Jessica kept insisting she loved me, that it was just a moment of weakness, that she'd never do anything to hurt me again. But I wasn't buying her crocodile tears. I knew better now. Those tears didn't change what she'd done. She'd lied for months, maybe longer, and I couldn't just forget that overnight. I started to think about what I needed to do. Honestly, I felt like I had two options: forgive and try to rebuild, or cut her out completely. The second one seemed obvious, but the pain was still raw, and part of me wanted to believe she'd change. I wasn't sure if I could just walk away without feeling like I'd lost everything: my marriage, my trust, the idea of a future with her. But every time I looked at her, I saw the betrayal, the lies, the disdain she had shown me. It was all too fresh, too raw. In the days that followed, I started gathering more evidence, just to be sure I had everything straight. I didn't want to leave any room for doubt. When I finally decided what to do, I found more suggestive texts, some calls she'd made to Ethan after midnight, and a few more photos of her in compromising positions. It was like opening a Pandora's box. Every new piece of evidence stung worse than the last, but I knew I needed it if I was going to do this right. Meanwhile, Jessica kept trying to spin her stories. She told me Ethan was just a friend, that she never cheated on me, that I was just paranoid and jealous. She said I was overreacting because I was insecure. Her words were rehearsed, and I could tell she'd practiced that lying tone in front of the mirror. I didn't buy a word of it. I saw her true face, the face of someone who had betrayed everything we once had. I started thinking about what I wanted my future to look like. Could I forgive her? Could I even trust her again? Honestly, I didn't think so. The damage was done. I realized I was angry, betrayed, and hurt, but beneath all that, I also felt disgusted. Disgusted that I had been so naive, so trusting. Jessica had been a bitch to me at times, but I never thought she'd be capable of this kind of deceit. One night, I finally sat her down and told her I needed some space. Told her I couldn't be around her anymore, not until I figured out what I wanted. She begged, cried, promised she'd never do it again, that she loved me, but I wasn't buying it. I told her I needed time to think, to decide if this was worth saving, and honestly, I already knew the answer. I just didn't have the strength to end it right then. Not yet. But I knew I had crossed a point of no return. That trust was gone, and rebuilding it would take more than words. It would take a miracle. Those few weeks after I told Jessica I needed space were some of the worst in my life. I felt like I was stuck in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. Every time I saw her, I saw the betrayal, her bitchy smirk, the way she looked at Ethan in my mind's eye. It was like my brain refused to let go of what I had uncovered. I was angry, heartbroken, and honestly starting to hate her. But at the same time, I started to think about what I really deserved, and I knew I'd been a fool. I'd given her the benefit of the doubt for too long. I used that time to reflect, to decide what I was willing to accept and what I was. I knew I couldn't live with her knowing she'd been unfaithful. That kind of betrayal leaves scars, big ones, and it's not something you just get over. I also realized I was furious at how she'd lied, manipulated, and dismissed everything I'd thought was ours. This wasn't just about the sex. It was about the fact that she'd deliberately torn apart the trust I had in her, in us. I started preparing myself mentally for the breakup, even though I didn't want to admit it out loud. One night, I finally sat down with her again. I told her I made my decision, she had to leave, that I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay. Her face twisted into this bitchy sneer, trying to act innocent, trying to blame me for being paranoid or accusing her of something she didn't do. She told me I was overreacting, that I was insecure, that I should just get over it and move on. But I was done listening to her lies. I looked her right in the eyes and said, "You lied, cheated, and betrayed me. I don't think I can ever trust you again. I want a divorce." She snapped, of course. Started screaming, crying, calling me all kinds of names, paranoid, possessive, jealous. She even accused me of being the one cheating, which made me laugh bitterly. I told her I had proof, everything I needed, and that her lies weren't going to save her this time. I was finally done playing nice. I wanted her out of my life, out of my house, and honestly, out of my heart. That night she packed her bags. Her bitchy attitude only got worse as she realized she was losing control. I watched her leave, feeling a strange mix of relief and emptiness. The house felt different without her, like a weight had been lifted, but at the same time I felt hollowed out. I'd lost the woman I loved, the woman I thought I knew. And all because she couldn't keep her legs closed or her mouth shut or her hands off Ethan. In the days that followed, I started to rebuild. I cut ties with her entirely, blocked her on everything. I threw out her stuff, cleaned out our shared apartment, and took a long look in the mirror. I realized I'd trusted her too much, let her get away with things I shouldn't have. But I also knew I wasn't going to let this define me. I was hurt, but I was stronger than her lies. I truly believed I'd come out of this better, wiser, more cautious, and more prepared for the kind of betrayal I never thought I'd see in my life. It's been a few months now since everything fell apart, and honestly, I'm still trying to put the pieces back together. The funny thing is, I thought I'd be consumed with bitterness and anger forever, but surprisingly, there's a strange sense of clarity that's come with all this. I realize now how much I was blinded by trust, trust I handed out too freely, trust she abused. I was stupid to ignore the signs, to dismiss the little things that didn't add up. But the good part is, I learned from it. I learned to listen to my gut, to not let anyone take me for granted, no matter how much I love them. Looking back, I see how Jessica's lies and manipulations played a huge role in my downfall. She's a classic user, a bitchy woman who thought she could get away with anything because she was pretty, bitchy, and knew how to twist the truth. She kept convincing herself she was justified, that she deserved to cheat, to be free from my boring life. But I realize now, her selfishness was what destroyed what little respect I still had for her. The house feels emptier but also freer. I've started dating again, cautiously. I don't trust easily anymore, but I refuse to let this experience make me bitter or closed off. I just want a relationship built on honesty, respect, and real connection, something Jessica never truly understood. I've come to accept that sometimes, people you love can betray you in ways you never expect. It hurts, yeah, it cuts deep, but it also teaches you how to value yourself more. If there's one thing I want to say, it's this: never overlook the signs. Don't ignore that feeling in your gut telling you something's wrong. Trust is fragile, and when it's broken, it's damn near impossible to fix. But more than anything, don't let betrayal turn you into someone you don't recognize. Be strong. Learn to walk away when necessary. Because in the end, your happiness and self-respect are worth more than trying to salvage what's already dead. Life goes on, even after the worst betrayals. I might be scarred, but I'm also stronger now. I've learned that revenge doesn't fix anything, and that forgiveness isn't about her. It's about freeing myself from the anger that's been holding me hostage. So I move forward, a little wiser, a little more cautious, but ready to find someone who truly values honesty and loyalty. And maybe, just maybe, I'll find that again someday.